Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK.
And I'm Courtney.
And Courtney, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm sleepy. It has been a long 2 weeks. I've made it back to Louisiana today. Um, so I got here to the house like 8 hours ago. Um, but I'm good. I've been crazy. I feel like I haven't seen you in 2 months and it's
I
been
know.
1 week.
I know.
So I don't know what is happening in the world, but yeah, I'm good. So I spent the last week very busy. So if anyone has ever reached out to me that listens to this podcast, I will get back to you tomorrow. That is my day. I literally have like a stack of emails. I have text messages that I'm just like, I can't respond to that right now. Because I just stayed busy the whole time. We did podcasting on Sunday, and then Monday I went and had drinks with my old coworkers, which was very nice. But then that day was a wash because you don't do things after that.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday, my friend Jason, who I love dearly, he got free tickets to a show because he started working for this new real estate agent. So on Tuesday, I saw Anne Juliet, show and tell, Anne Juliet. It's amazing.
I know, I can't wait.
It's so good. When do you have it again? What season?
It's the first show we have the next season, so September, I
Oh,
think.
it's like soon.
So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's
Like,
absolutely incredible.
I
It's
love
so
it.
funny,
Major
so well
fan.
written. You're gonna adore it. I was staying in Jersey, so I was having to go back and forth from Jersey to Manhattan every day. That was fun.
That was fun.
That was fun. So Tuesday, when I got back to Jersey, someone
Oh no, sorry.
sent me.
That's not the first show I have next year. The September show is Some Like It Hot. I don't have and Juliet till November.
Happy birthday to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tuesday when I got back to Jersey, Noelle had fallen asleep, and so I had to walk back to the house, and it was hot. I don't know if anyone was in the northeastern portion of the world this week, but it was hot.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And then Wednesday, I went back into the city on the off chance that I could get snuck into a show because I have friends who work there. And 3 minutes before the show started, my friend Frank was like, "Don't leave, I can get you in." And so on Wednesday, so merrily we roll along.
I'm genuinely mad
So
about.
good. It was so good. And I just sat in this, like, they have these two tall chairs in the back by the sound booth, and they just put me in one of them. And they were like, "We never have room to like get our friends in. Like, if they come, this is where we put them when we can."
Yeah.
But then all of the New Jersey trains stopped running that night. So it took me 3.5 hours to get home.
That's what
as
you get
opposed to
for seeing that show
45
without
minutes.
me.
I know. I waited in cancellation, and then they were like, "It's $249." I was like, "I'm just gonna go home. I don't need to pay $249 for a show ever in my life."
Yeah.
And so as I was getting ready to leave, Frank like had come down the stairs and was like, "Don't leave." But yeah, so it was beautiful. And then I did have to figure out how the PATH train worked. Never taken that before. That was new to me. So I was angry. I had to rent this like charger from Penn Station because my charging block did not charge when I thought it did. So I had it, but it was not charged how I thought it was. So now I'm hoping Noelle remembers to take that back tomorrow, because if not, they're going to charge me $50 for it. Yep. Good times, good times. And I left. I was supposed to catch the 10:23 train.
Yeah.
And I got back to Linden train station to get the car at 1:30 a.m. It was and I hadn't eaten.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I had not eaten. It was so crazy.
Yeah, you were not a happy person when I was talking to you on Thursday.
I was so upset to be alive Thursday. But then, or that was Wednesday, because then Thursday we had a nice little relaxing day. We went out to the beach. It was cold, but it was worth it. We went to the beach out in Long Branch, and then we went to this spa, which I'd never been to before, and it was just the perfect, like, relaxing day. But yeah, so that was my Jersey week. And so tonight I have my Old Smoky Moonshine Distillery coffee that I talked about last time on the
Nice.
podcast. And I have Screwball. So these are for this episode. If you stay tuned, I'll probably have more baby bottles for the next episode. But so that's how I am. I am recovering, and we'll see how much my brain works today with the lack of sleep I've had over the past 4 days. How are you?
So this week was a lot for me as well. More emotionally than like physically. Monday night I had to drive back out to Rochester for a memorial service for my best friend. And that is something I haven't really talked about on the podcast because I don't know how to talk about it without absolutely losing my mind. But yeah, one of my best friends from college who I realized the other day, I was thinking about it, I realized that we've been friends for 12 years. And so that was a lot, but she unfortunately always had health issues the whole time, like since she was born. It wasn't like a new thing, but so it was
Yeah,
a rough week. So that was Monday night, which meant that then Tuesday I refused to do anything because I
sure.
just was not, because my mom couldn't get off of work and Dan had rehearsal, so neither of them could come with me. And they both like talked about it and we were like, honestly, like it's better. Like you wouldn't, it would be weird and uncomfortable for you there. You wouldn't like know everyone who's there the same way that I do. Like you don't have the same emotional connection. You'd basically just be there as like support for me. And so it was fine. And the memorial service was lovely. And Trisha's mom was so happy to see me. And I saw a lot of my old friends who I haven't seen since before COVID. And so like it was
That's
really, really
nice.
nice. Um, but then I just Tuesday literally just was could not do anything because I needed
Right.
to cope. Um,
Mhm.
and then Wednesday I just worked both jobs, started my life. But Thursday we had a field trip for the children. Oh, the other crazy shit that happened is during all of that emotional stress, my principal, her mother-in-law passed away weekend before, and so for 3 days I was the acting principal. I was running the school. Like,
You were like running a sinking ship. That's a struggle.
yeah, like I was like getting permission slips out for field trips. I was like changing the schedule. I was doing award ceremonies during mass. Like I literally ran the school for 3 days while having the worst emotional week of my life.
Right.
Um, so I was like, you know what, for this baseball game, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be great. I was sitting with some of my eighth graders, who are absolutely hysterical, and like, I remember what it was like to be a 14-year-old girl. So like I did not even
Sure.
and like one of the girls just kept talking about how she needed to watch the cake show because she was just realizing that baseball players have really nice butts because she's 14 and like just figuring these things out in life.
What's the cake show?
Like cakes, like you have a nice cake, like a butt. She just wanted to stare at all their butts. That's all.
I've never heard this.
You've never heard a butt called a cake?
Nope. Nope. My only euphemism I know is cake by the ocean, and I don't think that's about butts.
No.
I mean, tangentially, but like,
Yeah, but no.
yeah.
Yeah,
Is that why? New Orleans baseball team is called the Baby Cakes. Maybe they're the baby butts.
maybe. I don't know how long that has been around though. I feel like it's not one of the newer ones.
Well,
Um,
baby cakes, they changed their name while I was in law school. So like they have baby butts now. I'm gonna tell everyone that. That
um,
is
yeah, hold on. Yeah,
butts
this
as
Urban Dictionary
cakes.
saying that cake means butt is from 2015.
Well, 2016 or 20, no, 20, no,
Oh no,
2016 or
here
2017.
2009 entry of Urban Dictionary cake being called butt.
Mm,
I was like, I felt like that was not new. I didn't think that one was a newer slang. I mean, the fact that she
hmm,
was yelling "giat" at them,
right.
that one is
Sure.
not. But she was like, "Oh, I just need to get hydrated so I can watch the cake show." And I was like, I
You better watch. I would be so annoying using that phrase now.
she asked another student for a piece of paper, and I said, do not give it to her. She's going to write inappropriate things on the paper and show it to the baseball players. So she's not allowed to have paper right now. And
No paper for
she was like, you can't stop me from saying it though.
bless her heart.
But if you are watching this, you can see that I suffered more at that baseball game than just sitting next to children. And also sitting next to children watching a baseball game in 85-degree weather when the baseball team we were rooting for was losing 9-1. So it hasn't really been a good week.
Mine was mostly good. It just had a lot of stress.
Yeah, no, mine
Like New
was
Jersey did not want me there. They were not pleased that I came back.
no,
So
I don't think like life wanted me there. I might have really scarred Dan last night because we were just talking about like stress and everything. And it was like I was with his sisters and his mom, and we were talking about like if you're in a hospital and you have a nurse who's like correctly giving you like medication and you die slowly, or like if you have a nurse who's like they don't want to be here, like what is better? And I was like, I hope that I don't have to be in a hospital to die. Like, I hope that I die. Like, if I'm not going to die peacefully in my sleep, I want to go out like
with a bang,
in a plane crash. Like, I just like,
I don't want that.
well,
Biggest nightmare.
I don't want that. But like, I mean, like, I want it to be fast. I
But
want it
yeah.
to be
Mhm.
tragic. I want it to be like,
Right.
nobody knew what was going to happen, which is awful to say, but like, I don't want to suffer. I don't want people to like deal
Yeah.
with me suffering. I don't want to be sick. I don't want to, I'm already hate how I feel 90% of the time. I don't want to feel worse. Like, I either want to
Mhm.
live to be like 100 and just die in my sleep because that's what happens, or I want it to be fucking fiery and tragic. Like that.
Yeah,
and
I definitely agree with that. Although I want to make sure that when you say fast, it is fast. Like plane crash, I would be terrified.
oh
I
yeah,
had
the
the
build
worst
up,
turbulence day. I thought I was going to die.
the
And for two
the
hours, I was like, no good.
that's true. In a plane crash, there's a lot of build up to the plane
Yeah.
crash. Um,
But I agree with the sentiment.
yeah. Um, he did not. He was
Oh, well,
horrified,
he's not a,
that I said that.
I was
Um,
going to say he's not a depressed person. I was like, that sounds really dark. I don't want to die. And you don't want to die.
no,
We're just discussing possibilities.
no, I don't.
Just to
Neither of us want to die. We're not like that level of depressed. We're just realistic
the
about
dark side
that
of
death
it.
is imminent, and let's not
Imminent.
make it pleasant. Like, or let's, I don't know. But
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. So since we're just waiting for the end to come,
Sure.
could you give us a little bit of guidance on that path?
Yeah, we're taking a hard turn. It's a very positive message today. So do prepare yourself for the whiplash. Um, but today, I hope you wake up with love, love for life, love for others, and most importantly, love for yourself.
It's great. It's great. I will wake up with love the day that we do this episode, because this episode comes out because you and I will be recording that morning, so it'll be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're like, I don't know what
sounds good.
you're like, wait,
I don't even know what today is. I'm sure that's in a calendar somewhere.
it
I
is.
believe you.
It is.
That feels very correct to me,
Yeah. You're like, I don't.
but I've had 12 hours of sleep in the past 4 days, I think. So I don't even know what day it is anymore.
Great. Well, today, luckily, we don't really have a very super structured podcast episode today, because why? I mean, I have a plan of how we're going to do this, but it's not like an episode where it's we got to get through a specific number of things. Because
Thank God
today,
it's your plan because mine would not make sense.
today we are tying a bow, wrapping up Stargate SG-1 season 5. And because it is a wrap up, I don't have a lot of on this day facts, obviously, because there's not a day.
Sure.
So, before we get into our thoughts for the future and any production, I want to just do a quick like rundown of what was season five because
Great question.
these seasons are so long that it is literally like 4 months worth of episodes of recording. So sometimes it's like, where did we even start?
Yeah.
So season five started with the episode Enemies, which was our final appearance of Apophis. And it is when Teal'c,
Jesus.
yeah, that was this season when Teal'c decided to get brainwashed. And by decided to, I don't really
Mhm.
mean that he decided when Teal'c
Right.
was brainwashed and joined Apophis. And then the next episode was Threshold, which was our lovely Greytac flashback retraining Teal'c episode. Um, and then we get to some weird shit in the middle.
As we
That
always do.
as we always do. Ooh, sorry, I'm gonna sneeze.
Bless you.
Thank you. And this stuff, luckily, this season kind of even the weird stuff kind of connected more with other
Mhm.
episodes than I think in the past. I think that there was a little bit
I think
more
that's true.
follow through, with
Yeah.
maybe the exception being episode three. So we have episode three was Ascension, which was the one
Oh,
like
but I love
invisible alien. Yes, and no, I'm not saying it was a bad episode. I'm just
I
saying
know.
it was not necessarily as connected as some of the others.
Right.
It was the alien that went invisible and followed Sam home as one does. Um,
Sure. If I was an alien, I'd follow Sam home. So
I
I get it.
mean, yeah. Um, then we moved on to the fifth man, which seemed weirder than it actually was in the long run of the show because it introduced a race of aliens that
All right.
we had never seen before that had the ability to trick people into seeing only what they wanted to see, which at the time of the airing felt kind of cool, new alien one off. But then that technology ended up coming back and being very important later in the season, which is always nice.
Yes.
We moved on to Red Sky,
Which is our
which
first like dark.
yeah, super dark. Kind of like we have to realize that like I think this is the first time we talked this season about the fact that like we need to stop forcing our belief systems onto other planets kind of deal. Um, but do you remember what the thing in this episode that is important is? Now I'm just quizzing you so that I'm
Was
not.
it I don't. I know we saw a race, but we haven't seen them again, I don't think, since. And then it was it when they came in to kill them with the red sky, like how they created the red sky? I don't know
Well,
the specifics, but
no,
like
so they did accidentally be the ones to create the red sky, but this is actually where we
right.
meet Freyr. This,
Oh,
yeah, this is the episode
sure
where
didn't
we
remember that.
this is the episode where we meet Freyr. We learned that this
Mhm.
planet that we didn't know what it was is actually like an Asgard protected planet. And we learned that the specifics of the Asgard deal don't allow the Asgard to interfere with um, natural disasters. So the sky turning red and
Right.
the carbon dioxide or oxygen levels changing or whatever is technically a natural disaster. And so the Asgard won't interfere,
Right.
which, of course, that all comes in quite a few more times this season. Um,
Correct. It really was a pretty well interconnected season
yeah,
for episodes that we weren't sure how exactly they were gonna come
exactly.
around,
I
you know?
think, yeah, there's only a few that I feel like really didn't um go anywhere. The next one was Rite of Passage, which is the
Mm.
episode with Cassandra.
This is one
And
that I feel like didn't really go anywhere.
I think the only thing that this did was show us that Nirti is still out there and that she is no longer connected to the System Lords. And we do
Mhm.
kind of get the idea that the System Lords don't necessarily all, not all Goa'uld are part of the System Lords. That's kind of what we learned
Right.
in this episode. It is less connected than other episodes, but that whole information with Nirti kind of is a pebble in the pond of the
Before
Anubis
it really,
of the Anubis storyline
yeah.
that we're gonna get later.
Hmm.
Um, Followed by Beast of Burden, which is the
Oh,
Chaka
Unas.
episode,
Yep.
where they find the Unas's slaves. This one may be the one of the least connected.
But it's still like, I think it was, well, yes, it was least less connected to this season. I think it was still important for like wrapping Daniel up in a way. Like,
Oh, I think it was super important for Daniel's storyline. I think it was really important in the whole like Stargate is getting darker idea. I think it was a great episode, and I love Chaka coming back. But in
mhm.
in the in terms of this season actually
Season
feeling like
five
a
arc,
connect
yeah.
the season five feeling like a connected arc, this one is
Hmm.
probably the least
Yeah,
connected.
I agree.
Um, Next is the Tomb, which was the Russian alien one that showed us that the Goa'uld can take hosts that are not human with that weird like spider squid
Yeah,
alien thing. And um not a lot to say about that one.
no.
Next was Between Two Fires, where we unfortunately lost the Tolan forever. Which
Which is like such a choice to make. I understand. I'm sure we'll talk about this again too, but like they were so integral, it seemed,
Mhm.
for them to just be like, they're gone forever now. Like, you
Right.
know. Because
Yeah,
and it comes up so much the rest of the season. Like we mentioned in the
exactly.
Tolan.
Imagine the
And
Tolan
it's
not being
like
able to help us like many
it
times this season.
almost feels like we've mentioned them more than we've seen them. Like,
Valid. Valid.
so it's like, why? Why are we harping so much on this one species if it's, you know, I don't know.
Speaking of another species that we harp on for no real reason, 2001 was the episode where we find out what the Ashen were going to do in the last season's flashback episode.
Right. And this is going to be like the last piece of that, right? Like it was
It was
2010 and now 2001, and that's it.
Yes, it was intended to have a third part, but that third part was
Mm.
never actually made. So
Hmm.
yes.
Which feels like both of those could have just been removed and thrown away.
Yeah.
So,
Next up was Desperate Measures, which
mm.
I don't even remember
Yeah,
this.
Carter was taken to the abandoned hospital. Two doctors studied her for
Oh,
Jolinar.
yes,
I
yes,
have IMDb
yes.
up. I don't just like know that from the
Okay,
back
no,
of my
because
brain.
okay, the synopsis that I'm looking at just says when Major Carter is kidnapped by a terminally ill man who intends to use a Goa'uld symbiote to save his life, O'Neill is forced to team up with an old foe to find her.
Oh,
That is the
yeah.
least descriptive thing I've ever heard.
No, mine says Carter gets kidnapped and taken to an abandoned hospital while two doctors work to study the remains of Jolinar. And I was like, oh, 100%. I know exactly
Yes,
what that
the
means.
old now that you say that, the old foe
Yeah,
is Mayborn, but for my
right.
description, I was like, who are we
Hmm.
teaming up with?
Yeah, yours is like a Netflix description.
Yeah, at this point, I don't believe that Mayborn is an old foe. I don't like,
He's a bestie.
yeah.
Especially
Um,
now that we've lost all of our other besties. We got to keep one of them at least.
right. I In the Terra podcast, though the other one that I've been trying to
Hmm.
catch up with the girls who I want to try to team up with at some point. I've been listening to their podcast to at least try to catch up on their episodes to where we are in our show. And I just got to the first Mayborn episode where he's first introduced, and it's so funny how much they hate him.
I feel like I want to listen to it, but I want to listen to it like on par with ours to see where our like
Yeah.
ideals are. Because I know you have had a lot of the same ideals throughout because you'd already seen it, but have no doubt that I have said some crazy stuff
Well,
and
and on
whacked out
their
feelings that have changed.
and on their podcast, Nix is the one who is more like me. She has seen the show.
Hmm.
She says a lot of things that she's like, I will not be answering that question. It's a lot of things like
Yeah.
that. Um, but Grace is like you, where she just has unhinged speculation, and I feel like
I love it.
you would appreciate it.
I need to
Um,
befriend them. What is it called again? I thought I saved it, but I'm not seeing it now.
um, uh, there's no place like Tara.
There's no place like Tara. I've added a lot of, since I've been traveling so much, I've added a lot of podcasts to my podcast library. And that one did
They have
make
a
it.
really catchy theme song on their podcast too.
Ooh,
That I had to sing in my head to get to the name of the podcast. I was like, hold on, I know this.
that's so funny. And it's
Um,
Tara, like Terra, like
yeah,
her.
yeah.
Okay. Sure, I
Um,
follow him. I don't know how. Anyways, sorry.
it's all right. Then we move to our halfway point of the season where we have the very exciting 100th episode, Wormhole Extreme. Which
I just love Martin. Like, I don't care what you did with this episode. I was gonna love it. Like
yeah,
chaos,
it was, and that's the
non-connections,
thing is,
everything.
it truly wasn't intended to be part of the plot. Like,
Hmm.
and that's the thing about it is like this episode, yes, it wildly does not fit into the season 5 story arc, but it was never trying to.
Right. Yeah. It
Um,
was barely trying to fit into Stargate.
um, then we had Proving Ground, um, which was at the end of the day kind of sucks because um it introduced us to a great new character who then immediately died the next time we saw
Immediately
him.
died.
So that sucked. Um
Because are we gonna see the rest of those characters again? Like, or any of them? We'll see the girl probably, right? Or is that it?
I I don't remember if we see her again, but I know we don't see the other ones. I don't even remember
I
their
just feel
names.
like they built her up because they
They
had her
did.
in the last season and then they had her in this
Yeah, they
season.
really did this. This episode really was something that could have gone somewhere really far and it didn't.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Or it could have held on to be another spinoff if it needed to be. Not that
yeah.
they need, another one probably. I mean, they do now because they stopped, but like
Right.
at the time, they
Yeah.
were okay.
Then we are introduced to Dr. Rodney McKay in 48 hours. Um, and that is the Daniel is the best negotiator with Russia and Mary Kate fangirls over the worst character in the entire episode. Um,
Oh, the new guy. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Who's being
Uh,
to Sam.
yes. And then we kind of go on like a really long streak of really good and connected episodes because we have Summit and Last Stand, which are the two Osiris and You and Ball episodes.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Um, oh, never mind. I think IMDb is just confused because it said it was 2001 up until Summit, and then it said 2002 for Last Stand, then 2001 for Failsafe. But if you look at the actual dates, they're all 2002. I
I
just
was
got
like,
really
yeah, I
confused
was
for a
like
second.
2002 Proving Ground starts 2002.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I thought. That's why I got really confused. IMDb is just wrong again, as
okay,
they are.
usually.
So,
Then we have Failsafe, which brings us back to the Gould, the Asgard not interfering with natural disasters
mhm.
situation. The Warrior, which is the episode with Caetano that shows us that the Gould are kind of
Mhm.
getting creative with their plans
Sure.
we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I
Um,
didn't love that episode though.
I didn't love the episode as a whole, but I do like the introduction to the fact that the Goa'uld are open
Right.
to other ideas of how to
Hmm.
work with people. And then we had our last 4 episodes. We had Menace, which was our replicator episode. The Sentinel, which was not as connected or creative, but it does tie a bow on um the original NID
Yeah.
traitor story.
And give us Henry Gibson.
Yes, exactly.
That's the real important thing
The
about the
real important
episode.
thing. Then we
Mhm.
have Meridian and Revelations, which are the death of Daniel Jackson and introduction of Jonas Quinn, and then the big happy moment where we find out what the Asgard are really doing and are introduced to Anubis. Um, so before I talk about some production stuff and some information, um, what what is in your mind? What is the high points and the low points? Like, what did you really love about season
Mhm.
five? What did you really not love?
Sure. So I really liked the arc was a lot more consistent because that's one thing I know I've been complaining about since the beginning.
Yes.
And I feel like this season, like I've been tapped in, but this season really felt like I like really felt tapped in, you know? And so I liked that a lot. And I don't know if it was because the arc was so much more consistent or everything and there wasn't as many like Snowball Man episode styles. So I was able to like even the episodes that I did like love, like you were saying, like there was still something good about them, or still something
Mhm.
important about them, or still something I could like latch onto that I was
Yeah.
like, this is still fine.
Yeah. I
Um,
definitely think that they did a better job of staying true to the idea that this
mhm.
is a story of the week show and you kind of have to
Yeah,
have unrelated episodes, but also like making sure that if you are following it for an arc, there's something to take out of every episode.
right. And I feel like it did, and I really liked that. And I know that because they knew they were leaving the station after that, I really liked that they did try to wrap up some of the bigger storylines, the minor big storylines, I guess.
Yeah.
So like we see Cassandra, we see the Shaka, we see
Well,
the replicators come back
I will
finally.
say, I don't know, in terms of the Cassandra and the Chaka thing, I don't know
Uh-huh.
that that is part of that. So, they did not know at the beginning of the season that they were not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I would say everything from Proving Ground on
Okay.
was probably all of the things that aired in 2002 is probably when they had more of an idea. Um,
Well, I liked even so that they kind of were like, these were things we introduced as big ideas that we never spoke about again, because that's, one of the biggest complaints for me as well, is that it's
yeah,
like, here's a huge thing. JK, you're never going to see it again. And I mean, there was a little bit of that, but not as much. And so I liked that we had those pieces. And then when they did introduce something new, it wasn't off topic new. So that was a really high point for me because of course, we get Anubis, we get, Reese with her pieces. And so, like, but those were all things that were already connected in another way. And so it didn't feel like we were just being thrown into like seven different storylines that had no connection. Um, and other than kind of proving ground with having all the new recruits to never come back.
yeah.
Um, but that was also almost synonymous of like the start of the show because we lost those what is his name
Kowalski.
Kowalski. We lose like Kowalski. We have all these people that it's like here's your big team and then they take them away. So it's almost like even as annoying as it may be, it's a little more synonymous with the beginning of the show. So it
Yeah.
kind of is coming around full circle. It feels like as just in case. So those were kind of my high points. I didn't have a ton of low points. I did feel like there were some episodes that the characters were either trying to evolve in a different way um than they had in the past seasons. So like Carter's had her episodes where she's like the woman who's on the SG team. But this also felt like it involved a lot of that. We didn't see as much. I didn't feel like we saw as much of her being scientific. She was just kind of one of the team at some points. Um, and we've already talked a little bit about like Daniel Jackson's trajectory. And then
Yeah.
even Tilk, like we have the very beginning is hard, fast Tilk.
Yeah.
But then it's like, other than the Katano episode, we don't have that same time with the Goa'uld necessarily that we've had in the
Yeah.
past that he kind of carries throughout. And so
Yeah,
it's not
that's true because even our most Gould heavy stories were
not Tilk heavy
not
or
Tilk heavy.
connected. Like,
Yeah.
and so those were some, and I don't know that that's necessarily bad. Those are some of the things that I've been like, I would maybe think about that before I did it that way again,
Yeah.
Um, And then I don't know. I think that's probably it. I didn't have. I mean, Daniel dies. That's low. So that for sure, real bummer. Thor going comatose, real bummer.
Yeah.
But I really liked Freya, and what's the other one?
For Heimdall.
Heimdall. I love Heimdall.
Yeah.
So I felt like when we got, and I loved one of the high points was definitely the summit.
Yeah.
Like seeing all of the system lords in one place and like it I feel like that kind of flipped the Goa'uld on its head for me because I started feeling compassion for like you. And
Right.
I, as of yet, had not felt compassion for the Goa'uld. Because the closest we came was to watching what's his face get like on his deathbed. What is his name? The main one, Apophis.
Apophis.
Like seeing Apophis on his deathbed is like maybe the closest we saw to like
Mm,
having compassion for Gollum. And
yeah.
even then I was like, but he kind of deserves it. But like
Yeah,
I
you
think
and that time you
considering
didn't feel bad for Apophis, you just felt bad for this old man who had been stuck with
right.
this thing in his body for how many hundreds and thousands of years.
But introducing them like as a summit means you don't have that same backstory. You don't have that same like response of like knowing how much they've tortured or hurt other people. You
Well,
see them as new people
and
too.
also showing them at odds with each other means that
Mhm.
even if they're all bad guys, there's levels to the bad guyness, which is a weird
Right.
thing to think, but like think about how many times like in a cop show, like the cops use informants, or you have that person who like
Yeah.
they're not a good person, but we need them right now. And they're that it opens the Goa'uld up to being that kind of relationship.
Right. And like for me personally, one of my favorite storylines is a like a good villain.
Yeah,
And I don't want them to
like
be like super
a
redeemable,
no, like an anti-hero, like somebody.
almost like an anti-hero, but not like not as strong-willed, I guess. Because there's such a cliche of a redeemable villain. There's such,
Yeah.
we have the Snapes of the world, we have all of this. And I feel like they did a good job of implementing some of those same feelings without letting you know why. Almost the same way when we're talking about heart, and you're like, I think Hannibal's okay sometimes. Like,
I was literally just thinking about it. It's the Hannibal. It's the Hannibal effect. It's the
mhm.
good guy by convenience thing.
Right,
Yes.
right.
And it's like Hannibal, is he fucked up? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Does he also genuinely help the police
Yeah,
when it makes sense for him to do that? Also, yes.
right. And not to just like go off on a philosophical tangent. So what word am I trying to say? But like I think having those characters builds so much depth because it also builds depth in people watching it or reading about it because it helps build that empathy to like help people in the world like connect. Because you're like, when you look at it on paper, you're like black and white, like good and
Yeah.
bad. And like that's one of the things that when I'm writing, I try to include is like, I want you to not be able to always find that line because that's not how real life is.
No, well, it's
There's not
like
always a solid line.
so it's interesting. So my one of my favorite books to teach my middle schoolers is Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. And I know we've talked about it a little bit on the podcast and that you have not read the book.
Mhm.
But the premise of the book is that all of these people get invited to this mysterious island. And you learn that the only thing that all of these people have in common is that they have some kind of connection to a murder, some kind of skeleton in their
Mm,
closet where none of them were criminally charged, but all of them may or may not have done something very bad.
okay, so Leah Moriarty wrote the Wish version then, because that is the same story she wrote for um oh gosh, it's the people on the island. It just came out, it came out like 6 years ago, but it was a Leah Moriarty book. It was the second one that came out after Big Little Lies on TV.
Oh,
Um I can't remember what it was called, but do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't, but yeah, like literally
Yeah.
that is that not just the Wish version of And Then There Were None?
It is because I didn't realize because I didn't know when there were none. So I was unaware. Let's see. It should be like one of the first ones. Nine Perfect Strangers. And she invites all these nine perfect strangers out to a retreat, and then someone's running it who's a little bit diabolical. and they're all there for a reason because they have skeletons in their closet. Which
Yeah,
I do
so
like that storyline, and I do understand people can write different things. I just didn't
um
actually love Nine Perfect Strangers.
well, I'm about to read some more about it to see
Mm,
if it is actually just literally copying the oldest and most number one best-selling mystery book in the history of the world.
yeah.
Because if it is, that is a problem.
Well, it would make sense because she's an excellent writer, and I love her other books. That's the one that fell short for me. So the rest of them are like, so you tell me.
Um, yeah, synopsis. Okay. It is very, very similar, but not the
Not quite the same.
no, the direction that it goes and the twist at the end is not quite the same. Um,
Got it.
so okay, I just want but so basically in this book, despite the fact that all of these people are not good people, by the end of the book, there are characters that you
Mhm.
so strongly root for to the point where the play version and the movie version have a different ending.
Oh, interesting.
And part of that has to do with the way censorship in the 1940s worked.
Sure.
But part of it has to do with the fact that in the book, there are no redeemable characters. At the end of the
Mm,
book, zero of them come out of it as good people. But people don't like to watch a movie when there is no
no.
one.
Yeah.
So, like in the movie, they changed the ending so that one of the people didn't actually do what they were accused of doing. And so
Mm,
then it all just becomes about them being the quote unquote hero. Um,
yeah. It
which
has a similar feel to also if anyone does like this vein of story, there's a book called The Passengers by John Mars that came out maybe 6 years ago. And it's a very similar story where it's much more modern. They are in self-driving cars that lock them all in and they're in separate cars. And so like you have to figure out who did what. And the worst people, if they don't come out from it, their car crashes them because they lost control. Um, I actually don't remember if anyone came out good. I think they just ended up twisting everyone's stories to make them like to explain why they did the bad thing.
right.
Um,
But yeah, there is something really interesting about the being able to write a character that the audience or the reader knows is a bad
mm,
guy and still roots for.
yeah.
And I think it's interesting because you're right. You is the first time that we've ever had a system lord that we have any feelings about that are not,
Just bad.
yeah. Or just annoyed because like Hathor,
Right.
I was just annoying.
Yeah, but I never had delusions that she had done a good thing in her life. Like I never thought
No.
it like given the option, even if it made more sense to pick the good option, I bet she'd go bad. Like no question
Right.
there.
Right.
So
Yeah, so um you talked about them knowing that the ending was going to wrap up, and that kind of leads me into a little bit of the things that I wanted to talk about in terms of the production. And I know I had alluded to this when we talked about the season finale, because we, oh, where are my notes? I wrote my notes in a really stupid place in my notebook.
mhm,
So we talked about this, and we've talked about it in the past that Stargate is a weird show in the way that Showtime ordered these seasons was because they ordered them bulk.
right.
So you would have like two seasons ordered at once and two seasons ordered at once. And they did that after season four as well. They ordered season five and six. Brad Wright, the original creator and the executive producer of the show, never intended the story to go past a sixth season. He had a plan of basically three sets of two seasons that were interconnected.
Mhm.
Um, and halfway through season five, they found out that Showtime did not want to pick them back up for season six. Even though they had already ordered it, they canceled it, the order. They did not want a season
So do
six.
you know how that works? Like if they order 6 seasons is do they just not have the contract yet until it actually starts, and that's how they're able to cancel even if they've ordered to? Or was it because of
If
the
no,
time?
if they can prove that it is not lucratively able to fulfill their contract, they can cancel a show at
So
any
there's plenty
time.
of loopholes to get out.
Yeah,
Got it. Okay.
that's the way TV contracts are written is like here are the number of orders that we want, but then you have to hit certain touchstones and things like that to be able because think about how many times a pilot gets greenlit and then 3 episodes later you never see it again because they weren't
Right.
able to like financially fulfill
Sure.
their end of the contract.
Right. Which makes sense, but and this may be my misunderstanding of how the TV world works. But my understanding was always like specifically with pilots, those were used as pitches. If they were going in to see if they hit or not.
Yes,
But if
yes,
they
yes, yes.
ordered the season, it didn't matter at that point. Like,
Yes and
and I don't
no.
know if okay.
So when they do, so a pilot is a pitch, and if you pick up a pilot, it can get picked up for an entire season, can get picked up for a half a season, whatever.
Mhm.
But if a TV station signs a contract, they like your pilot, they like your pitch, they sign a contract, they say we're giving you 11 episodes. After 4 episodes, you have gotten such low ratings that you're
Mhm.
financially unable to keep up your side of the contract. They are that is what canceling a show is. It's not like
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, they're like, our this contract is null and void because you can't keep your side of it up.
Yes. Yes. That
Um,
makes thank you for putting in legal terms so I have an understanding of it.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I because the internet wasn't what it is now in
Mhm.
2002, it's a little harder for me to find specific details. I do think that there is some allusion online to the fact that Showtime took the cue from Michael Shanks that if he didn't want to be a part of the
Mm,
show anymore, they didn't want to continue to work
that
on
makes
it.
sense. And I think
Um,
also that a lot of these like I don't know if this is the correct term, but more like private networks, as public posts like public broadcasting networks have a little more discretion anyways when it
yeah,
comes to stuff like that. So
absolutely.
like the Showtimes, the HBOs, stuff like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because they have such higher budgets and such
Mhm.
ability to fund things without advertising and things like that, they do absolutely have more discretion. Because if
Mhm.
you are not pulling in the money, you can't subsidize it with
Right.
advertisement.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So, but they did find out um, during season 5 that Sci-Fi, which I don't know when Sci-Fi became the Sci-Fi channel. Like
I mean, I remember it early in those times. I didn't watch it, but it was one of the ones that like hit late night a lot, had some stuff on there. And
yeah, so Sci-Fi wasn't actually Sci-Fi only launched in 1992. But Sci-Fi the way we know it now really didn't exist until 99. Well, no. So Sci-Fi was originally launched in 1992. It got a whole new branding in 1999, and then it became what we
mhm.
know it now, the Sci-Fi with the Ys. That was in
Right.
2009. But so in 1999, Sci-Fi was in this whole new branding and becoming a bigger channel. And
That makes sense.
they offered to take Stargate for the 6th season. When they picked them up, there was no conversation about it continuing past that. This was never, ever meant to go past season 6.
Well, and because a lot of, I mean, you look at shows even now, you look at them, it's hard to get a show past
Mhm.
even season 5, sometimes season 3, depending on the show and like the storyline. So
Unless
season
you're,
6 is ambitious,
unless
like for what
you're
they were going for.
some of these fucking shows that are on season
Grey's
27,
Anatomy
NCIS. Grey's Anatomy and NCIS have been on
and every
TV
soap opera,
for 165 years.
Guiding Lights, as the world turns,
Okay,
like
Guiding Light
53
has
seasons.
actually been on the air since the 40s. Um, because it was a radio drama first, and it is one of the few that went from radio to TV as the same show with the same
That's
characters.
so
Like
fun. I didn't actually realize that. I know
yeah.
it's been around for
No, no, no.
ages, but I did not realize that far.
It premiered as a radio drama in
That's so
1942.
funny.
It is the only soap opera that I was ever like actively into because also weirdly without me knowing this, it was the only soap opera that my mom was actively into as a teenager and the only soap opera that my grandma, her mom, was actively into as a teenager.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. Um, Tom Pelfrey, who is Kaylee Cuoco's husband,
Hmm.
um, he had a character for like 2 summers that was like a really, really big deal in the few years that his character was on Guiding Light, and I just happened to start watching it the year that he started it. So I have been obsessed with that man for so long. And then like nobody knew who he was until he got on, oh God, what show did he just do? Was it Ozark that he just had a really big part in?
Maybe.
It was
Let's
something
see.
like that. And then everybody was like, "Oh, this guy's so hot." And I was like, "Shut up, he's mine."
You know nothing.
You don't even know him.
Let's see if it tells me what he's on recently. Yeah, Ozark.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But so it's such a cutie. Anyway, but yeah, so they got picked up for season 6. We talked last week about how they wanted the season 5 finale to still kind of be a finale because they didn't want to assume that people would follow them. So they um seasons 1 through 4, all of the finales are cliffhangers intentionally to
Right.
get people to come back because they knew that they had the seasons. They knew that they had the ability to tell these stories. Um, season 5, they did not. And I will tell you, just as a spoiler, season 6, they also do not have a cliffhanger ending because for quite some
First year
time,
on a network.
it's first year on a new network, and actually for quite some time, um, I'll tell you, they did not every year from now until season 9. They did not know that they were going to get another season until after the season
Mm,
ended.
wow.
Yeah.
God,
Um,
that's stressful.
isn't it? Um, and it's interesting because it wasn't because they were begging and the network didn't have answers for them. They just assumed, okay, great, another season will end the story. And then the network was like, no, 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 please come back. Um, So it's interesting how the dynamics changed once they went to sci-fi and they had more mass appeal. Of course, it was still early 2000s sci-fi mass appeal, so
Sure.
it's not like Grey's Anatomy and NCIS, but
Yeah.
it
Because
is
it's not like sci-fi. I mean, it's been what, last 8 years that we've really had a bigger impact in sci-fi.
yeah, it is. It is interesting the resurgence of sci-fi
Yeah.
as a genre, um so the things that are interesting, the things to look forward to is that season 6 will not end with a crazy wild cliffhanger because they didn't know what was coming.
Hmm.
Um, they um but they did initially introduce Anubis as the new big bad to take
Right.
Apophis's place. So we know going into season 6 that Anubis will be
Hmm.
the prime evil that we're going to
Right.
focus on. Um, there was a really interesting interview with Joseph, like a Q&A online with Joseph Malozzi, where people were like asking him questions and they were like, well, like dad isn't really dead on the show. Like, is it possible? And he just straight out said, he was like, Apophis is not coming back. Uh,
I mean, good. It's about time.
he was like, Apophis is not coming back. Kowalski is not coming back. Skara is not coming back. Like, he was like listing all these people. He was like, they are
Uh,
actually dead. Like, I'm so sorry. They are dead.
yeah,
Um,
Scar was one that I know that wasn't this season, but Scar was one that like didn't I felt like did I didn't like it. I didn't like how it worked out
I
in
didn't
the end.
either. I was glad that they addressed his character and didn't pretend that his character didn't exist, but I didn't like how it worked out. Oh, Zapakna is actually legitimately dead. That one
Which one
we
was the partner?
the tall white one who was working with Osiris who wore too much eyeliner.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's actually like legitimately like, and so he was just listing all these people. He was like, nope, dead, dead, dead. And I was like, Courtney will appreciate that there is firm
I
not coming back.
love that. I love a good Joseph Malozzi wrap up.
um, yeah, it is I do appreciate when he's just like, no, 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 please don't. Um, what else did I have here? Oh, apparently that's all I wrote for that. But the the biggest change, obviously, is that we do not have Daniel Jackson.
Yeah.
Um,
Not a fan.
not a fan.
I
I
get
know.
it. I'm not a fan.
Um, so the I instead of having an episode to watch this week, I made Courtney watch a 6.5 minute tribute video that is a bonus feature on the DVD for um the season 5 DVD of Stargate, but it is also available on YouTube. Um, and it was just a 6 minute tribute video showing some of the best moments of Daniel and interviewing the cast about Daniel and his character. And Michael Shanks was just really sweet and was talking about who Daniel is and why he's important and what his
Mhm.
character is like and what his character's evolution on the show is like. And I think the thing that he says that I think is important, and I think is important to talk about because it will be interesting to see how that space is filled in the future, is
Mhm.
that he discussed that in the beginning of the show, Daniel Jackson was kind of the token translator.
Yeah.
But by the end of season 5, Daniel is the moral center of their team. And he is the one who says the annoying thing or the judgmental thing or the breaking the rules thing because he's more worried about what is right than what
Right.
we should be doing. Which is interesting because that does go all the way back to season 1 when you think about it. Because, like I said, I've been listening to this other podcast and they just listened to the first Tolan episode. And the idea that Daniel was like, well, I can't be court-martialed. I will do the right thing and get them out of here because I don't have to play by the rules of
Right.
the government. That's not my job. My job is to do the right thing. So it's not that it appeared out of nowhere, but it definitely got stronger. And one of the scenes that they showed in the tribute video was from the Hitler, not Hitler, Hitler alien episode where he was like, we're getting
Yeah.
involved in a world war and we don't even know what it
What's on
is.
the other side? Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your feelings about Daniel as the moral center, and what do you see as the future of that for the team?
So I 100% saw that. And I don't know that I would have pulled that out of nowhere. I would have said he is the most, that's not the word. I was going to say level headed, but that's not really what I meant. But like, I definitely see, I mean, you see him as the translator, you see him as that architect, the linguist, or whatever they decide to call him that day.
Right.
And then,
Whichever degree he has that week.
right. But then you see him being the mediator of the team, whether it's just within the team or it's with the Russians or with the UNAS or with whatever, like he is that mediator. And while his role didn't grow or change after the last couple of seasons, and which is part of the impetus for why he left, um, it is strange to see because it's not, I mean, Jack is not that.
No.
Jack is reactive. He is smart, he is strong, he's a great military man, but he is reactive. He is not going to mediate, he is not going to be patient, he's not going to take the time. Tilk doesn't have that emotional range. His know-how is very different. And while I think he could step in and be the mediator in the sense of the Goa'uld and the Jaffa specifically, because we did see that in the Katana episode,
Hmm.
um, I don't think that he can do it quite to the extent Daniel did.
Well, I
So I
think I
don't,
think he's at a disadvantage of being alien to the culture that
right.
he's trying to protect.
Right. And I think that, and they just have different values and they, their mediation styles are different, everything. I don't know the new guy enough to
Well, and
know.
that's what I was gonna say. If Teal'c is coming at it from the point of being an alien to the
Mhm.
culture, is Jonas really going to be able to fill Daniel's role in that sense? Jonas has the ability to fill Daniel's role in terms of intelligence, cultural and historical know-how. They said that he had 4 degrees and that he did this and he did this, and he is Daniel in a lot of ways. But
Right.
will he be able to morally replace Daniel on the team?
So my as of now, with the little knowledge I have, my only assumption is that the only choice is Sam. And that's because her and Daniel have such a parallel of being the scientist in the room, of understanding the outside world. And Sam has the advantage of also being her dad is a Tok'ra. She had Jolinar within her. She fell in love with this alien for 30 minutes. Like, and then she fell in love with Martouf. Like, she has.
And there's the Tolan guy that she was
Oh,
sort of
right. And the
dating.
Tolan
Yeah.
guy,
So
too. Yeah.
Sam's just dated a lot of aliens at this
Right.
point.
And so I feel like Sam has more of the capacity to fulfill that role. However, I don't want it to be like it's going to be hard if it makes it unbalanced because you need that scientific person. You need that emotional, moral person.
Yeah.
You need the military person. And then you need the like quote unquote outsider that has this outside perspective.
Yeah.
And that was the good balance we had with the team that we had.
Yeah.
And now having Joseph come in from also outside.
Jonas.
And we know that Jonas, I don't know what his name is. Quinn, what is his last name?
Jonas Quinn, yeah.
Who is this guy? No, I don't care yet. But so Jonas comes in from without, like from outside, and he does have the science base. And so I don't know if they're going to try and do this shift to, even though he's not the military, like US military guy,
Yeah.
if they're going to shift and make him more of the scientific one and make Sam more of the moral base. Because I just don't know him well enough. But that's the only, those feel like the only options.
That, I mean, and that's totally fair. I think it is really interesting to see where they're going to go with that. I also I just wanted to the other thing I wanted to address from that special is not really anything other than just pure comedy because someone let these people in front of a camera to talk. And Amanda talks about what Daniel and Sam's relationship is like, and it's a very like legitimate like tribute parting thing. And then Chris just completely says the opposite of everything that is true about Daniel. And then Rick just pretends he doesn't know who Daniel Dixon
like,
is.
That was my favorite thing about that special.
Who are we talking about? I was
sorry,
crying.
I don't know him.
Yeah, I was crying. There will be new credits.
Oh, sure.
Season.
Yeah, makes sense.
Like that's because we have to
can we, before we leave from the team dynamic, are we going to have a balanced team still? Is that something I need to wait and see? Or like, are we going to find, or not even necessarily the same balance, but a balance?
I think there definitely is a balance. I think there in any time that you have a new person joining something, there are kinks that need to be worked out.
Sure.
But it isn't like a full season of people hating each other or anything like that. That would just not be.
Well, no, yeah. And I didn't expect that, but I feel like, that awkward first date moment that you have with a new teammate,
Oh, for sure. But I will tell you that it is it does get addressed right away. Like it's not.
That's good.
Yeah.
That was my next question.
Yeah, so it does get addressed right away. And actually I'm really excited because the first part of season 6 addresses a lot of things. There's a lot of things happening in that episode, but like it's a good one. It's part of a part 2 and the part 2 is better, but it's still good.
Yeah.
The interesting thing that I find fascinating because I don't remember being 10 and watching the show, in terms of how it felt, but we talked about this season 1 or season 5. Our air date for season 5 was May 15th.
Oh, right.
It was then season 6 premiered the second week of June.
So still a summer show, but just later out on.
No, this earlier. This first season 5 began at like the end of June, beginning of July.
I thought you just said it premiered at May.
Oh no, it ended. The finale. Season 5 finale was May 15th. Oh. Season 6 premieres June 12th or something like that.
The same year?
Of the same year. They wasted no time in picking
Sci-fi
that
was
up.
like, let's cash this check today.
Exactly.
Like,
So it'll be very, very interesting to see
interesting.
how that worked in terms of feeling like a gap in anything. Like, do you need to be reminded of things?
Right.
Does it feel kind of like you're jumping in the deep end because they're like, well, you didn't have that much time off. You don't have to forget. Or do they take it in the like, we're on a new channel, we have to tell you everything all over again
Right.
direction?
Because we're introducing it to a new audience,
Yeah.
not the
So
Showtime audience, and we're introducing it to the free audience of sci-fi, where Showtime was only paid for at the time.
yeah. So it'll be very interesting to see how what your takes on it in that direction are. Um the
And
credits, I will say the credits only change so much. I think there might be a couple like picture like video clips that they change for different people, but they really just change it to take um
Daniel out and
Michael
put
Shanks
Johnson.
out and put
Johnson.
Cora Nemec, yeah, Jonas Quinn into the credits. And he goes to the same place that Daniel was last, but before Don S. Davis. So
Mhm.
nothing
Nothing
wild there.
changes. I'm
Um,
very interested to see what production and actual outcome looks like, because we from it's going to be the same team, right? We still have the Brad
yes.
Wrights, the
Yes,
Jordan
yes, yes.
Pelosi.
So
Okay,
production, all of our behind the scenes guys, our executive producers, all of that stuff, that does not change.
it's
And
just network.
it's just network. And
Okay.
like if you remember what Doug was talking about when we talked about production on the episode that he was on with us, for those of you who listened to it, Doug was talking a lot about the in-house Vancouver sci-fi special
Right.
teams. So even though we're changing the network, that does mean that there's some potential changes in budgetary things or content that's allowed to be showed because of the difference between network and non-network
Sure.
TV or whatever. I don't know what,
Sci-fi is such a lower paid network, especially at this time. I mean, it still
yeah,
is a lower paid network than Showtime, but
yeah,
especially at this time, this
exactly.
is, I feel like, when Showtime made its mark. You had
What,
Showtime and HBO and Cinemax that all came
yeah,
out in the same time frame, that were these
well,
huge networks that people paid premiums for. And
right.
Sci-Fi was not that.
Well, and you think about it, even in today, like I know we're moving away from standard
Mm-hmm.
television in general today, but there's a marketed difference between like say an ABC show versus an AMC show versus an
Yeah.
HBO show. And so
Yep.
but then you have places like TLC and Sci-Fi that don't really fall in the same tier as your
Mm-hmm.
AMCs.
Because
Um,
they're still free networks for the most part, right? Like,
yeah,
I know they're cable networks, but like you can find them online
yes,
without having to be subscribed to a Hulu to be subscribed to Showtime, which just costs
right,
twice as much as everything
right.
else.
So you have like the tiers are like NBC, ABC, standard, you can get it with a rabbit ear television,
Mhm. Basic cable, yeah.
basic cable. Then you have your cable networks that are not
Mhm.
networks, but they're free everywhere. They're your TLCs, your sci-fi,
Your CW.
your CW.
CW, does that
This
fall? Which one is that on? Because
CW,
it's
CW,
evolved a bit.
it has evolved a bit. I believe that it still falls under
The basic here.
the six basic things that
Okay.
you can get with rabbit ears.
Mhm.
So then you have your like networks that are still part of a basic cable package, but you do have to have a cable package to get to them, like
Like Food
MTV,
Network,
like
Cartoon
Food,
Network.
Cartoon Network,
Uh-huh.
Food Network, a MTV, Disney Channel,
Yep.
and then you have your like HBO, Showtime, Cinemax, Stars. Like you got to actually fucking pay for them
You've
channels.
always had to pay separate for and will for the rest of your life, it
So
seems.
so we're taking Stargate from tier 4 to tier 2. So what
Yeah.
is that going to do for the show? That's a good question.
Right. Because what kind of money could they put into it? Like, are they
Right.
gonna, because they already had a very low budget, even with it being on Showtime.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're going to have all of the same team behind the scenes, just that switch. So how obvious will it be?
Mhm.
I leave that for you and the audience to
Yeah.
decide because again, my memories of it are
Sure.
significantly. I mean, I've watched it again since I was a kid, but not from the same viewpoint that I'm watching it now,
Mhm.
and also not for quite some time. So,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to
My
remember, my last Stargate rewatch was 2013, I want to say. So, like, I'm still not fresh as a daisy on it.
right. My initial like gut reaction is that it won't actually change that much because with sci-fi having a lower budget, even being on Showtime and having the exact same production team, they know how to cut a budget.
Yeah.
And so I think that because I mean they've had 5 seasons of figuring out how do we put a spaceship with no money? How do we put this? And we've seen in the past when they've had to make these bigger spaceship scenes, planet scenes, that they would have another low budget episode before. And so I think they know how
Yeah.
to do a
Yeah.
low budget episode. And so I feel like we're not going to actually notice that much of a discrepancy. But it will be interesting to see regardless.
Because I will say there is a very, very big divide on the internet
Mhm.
of people who believe that the
Interesting.
show stopped being good when it left Showtime and people who don't.
Um,
So it is very interesting because there is a very big contingent of the online fan base who thinks that the show, like they still love the show, they still watch it, but they think that the peak of the
mhm.
show were those seasons 2 through 5.
The
Really.
like pure ones. Is it the
Yes.
same people that are like you can only watch 4, 5, 6 of Star Wars?
I mean, probably.
Right.
So I don't know, but it is just something to think about. It is an interesting thing to go into season 6 with, is this idea of where these are all the changes and this is what they look like on paper. Now let's see what actually happens.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see how that's gonna turn out. Um and to
Yeah.
learn more about the Sci-Fi Network, because honestly, I don't know as much about it as I'd like to.
Yeah.
I don't know any of the Sci-Fi originals. I know them for their reruns of sci-fi shows.
I
So,
know that they are responsible for Sharknado. That's
see, I never saw Sharknado, but I am familiar with the idea of it.
yeah. Wow, what a concept.
What a concept! I bet I'd love it. I bet I'd
Uh,
love it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I never had anything good to say about Sharknado until I met Tara Reid and talked to her about it, and her recollection of it being an absolute shit show, but the most fun that she and the rest of the cast have ever had, and just like the relationships that she got out of it, and the fact that like none of them had any concept of what they were doing and what the film was going to turn out to look like.
Yeah.
Like I respect them as people more than I did before knowing just how much. Because let me tell you, I've been in a play where I was like, God, I hope no one comes to see this show. So,
I've worked on stuff like
yeah,
that.
like we've
I've
all
been-
worked on the thing that we're like, I'll just keep this one off my resume. So, like,
Right.
um, when you're a movie star, you don't necessarily have that choice because everybody sees it.
Right.
And so I have more respect for Sharknado than or at least for the cast and crew of Sharknado than I did before. Um,
Yeah, I wish I would have. So I also met Tara Reid, but I didn't know it was her at first. Because I mean, she doesn't look like 2001 Tara Reid. And so I didn't really recognize her till the end. So I like chatted with her, but it was not about anything Tara Reid-esque.
yeah, no, I just had an absolute mental breakdown and cried and told her that she saved my life. So like it was a time.
Sure.
But
Yeah. It was when everyone caught out of work and me and Tara, who was the owner, were running the floor by ourselves. And so we both were helping other Tara. And that was most one of those chaotic days at the bar. But
so that is really all I have. I don't it's interesting when there's not a DNA awards and the seasons aren't terrible. It's like
yeah.
it's kind of harder to wrap them up because a lot of
Well,
our
there was a lot to talk about this season
there is a lot
too.
to talk about, and I do think this is episode is not as short as in my brain. I was like, oh my God, we're gonna go into it.
Oh,
I'm gonna
it's
have nothing to
for sure
say.
over an hour.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so next week we will jump right into season 6. We're not going to take a break or anything because if we did, we'd be watching Stargate until we have grandchildren.
Yeah.
Um,
So American has grandchildren.
no, maybe till you do too, and that's saying
I
something.
so we are jumping into a different dimension as well before we finish it. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So next week we will be watching season 6, episode 1. It is called Redemption Part 1.
We'll see. We'll see.
I'm gonna say does not have to do
With Daniel Jackson at
with
all.
Daniel Jackson at all.
Cool.
No, no.
Excellent.
but it does have to do with someone we haven't seen in a little bit. Um, and
Okay.
it begins with our question of, wow, what is Jonas going to do now that he's trapped on Earth? So, yeah. So we'll get right into it. And if you have any thoughts or feelings about season 6 of Stargate, you can email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com or follow us on all of the social media at deathandaliens.
I think Sam's gonna fall in love with Jonas as her mom.
Um, one last thing from that Joseph Malosi interview, because you said that. Someone in the interview or someone in the Q&A asked about Sam and a love life and a love interest because Martouf has died this season. What's his name also died from like the Tolan. The alien from Ascension had to go back to where he was, and they were like, "Are we ever going to give Sam a love interest?" And Joseph Malosi just straight up said she has one, but as long as they're both members of the United States Air Force, it's never going to happen. So calm down.
That's amazing.
And I was
love
like,
it.
yeah. So even the producers were like, no, Jack and Sam is a real thing. It's just also never gonna happen.
God, I hope Jonas falls in love with everyone too. Like as much as
Like
that drove
Daniel
me
did.
crazy about Daniel, that was
Oh,
also a highlight of
it will
mine.
be sad to not have someone trying to date someone every episode.
Right, right. Because it's
Yeah.
not Tilk. Our only option is Jonas or Sam if she finds more alien men.
I mean,
And she like falls deep in heart. Yeah, but
Jack's had his
was a
fair
lot of
share of.
convenience. Like he was stuck for 100 days somewhere. So of
Yeah,
course he
but
found a love. Like
that one felt a little real.
it did, but it was 100 days. If you're stuck with someone for 100 days and you think your entire life has ended, yes, you're going to bond to someone. You're going to pick someone
Oh,
to be your
is
person.
that how Dan and I got together? Because we were just stuck together for
Yes.
so long.
Yes. That's what it was. We're
Um,
forced into the same small space for entirely too long.
um, you can follow me on all of the social media at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can find me at C Cloud 13.
And we will see you next week. Or no, we'll see you on Thursday first. It's fine.
We'll
I don't
see you
know what's
Thursday.
going. Okay.
Bye.